Hey everybody, I'm supposed to be like the welcoming. We trying to wait for some people to come through because I usually run late and it's a little dreary day, so it's probably they're getting a little longer. And then this is a little walk from the parking, so bear with people. But just to give y'all a little background, my name is Andrea Jackson. I was a part of the planning committee, and I'm a part of each of the sponsoring organizations. All of these are nonpartisan organizations. The Waynesboro NAACP over here. Then we got Virginia Organizing over here. It's a community organizing. And then we got the League of Women Voters that specializes in civic and education and registering people to vote. And so we all came together as organizations who value civic education and people's rights to vote. And so we wanted to come and let people know and kind of commemorate like what has been going on this spring with the Supreme Court and different things that's been going on and redistricting and voter suppression, and bringing light to that, but also letting people know what's going on here in Virginia with the 3 constitutional amendments, and one specifically that we're going to focus on today is about returning citizens automatically restoring their rights to vote back automatically. And so this just kind of came about, like we got this beautiful banner for John Lewis, and I got that John Lewis shirt on. Just to give y'all a little background on this, John Lewis. So John Lewis died July 17th, 2020, and a lot of, organizations did their commemoration for him last weekend because it was near that date. That was not, we could not do that day, so we did it this day. But years ago, and about 5 years ago, we had another rally about letting people know about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that was in 2021. However, that was not passed, but it was still tried to be passed in his memory, and that's something that we still, if we get the right Congress and the right Senate, that is something that we could strive for to get passed in the future. So, with that being said, I welcome y'all. And so what we did was we all came and got together a couple months ago. We said, well, how are we going to do, how do we want to present this? And so we was like, how about we do a past, present, and future, and how we going to interweave all of these different voter rights subjects into one. And so we're going to have a speaker, Ms. Barbara Lee is going to kind of talk about the past. Then we're going to have Kayla will be talking about the present. And then sort of in the category, and look, this is very free-flowing. And in the future, we're trying to go back in this November, what is an actionable thing that we can do? And so we have Shiva and Uru, and she's with No Left Turn, and then Uru is one of our neighbors, a member of Virginia Organizing and a returning citizen, and kind of talking about the importance of us voting yes on the constitutional amendment about you're automatically getting your rights restored. Without further ado, Barbara Lee, come on up.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am Barbara Lee. In 1963, I marched on Washington at the age of 15.
Yeah.
In 2008, I had the honor of being a delegate to the convention out in Denver, Colorado, hearing the first black president become the first black president on the day King spoke. That's where I'm going to start. Now, the reason I got involved with voting rights is because all I heard on the mall was voting rights. So when I came home at the age of 15, I still didn't understand. But my passion has been about voting rights. That's our only voice in this democracy, which we are losing today. The ballot box is your key to freedom. The SAVE Act is the same thing as the poll tax. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. This is the same tax for voting rights. They want to take away your voting rights, especially for women. And from my understanding, and I don't understand why women keep voting for Republicans. That's my understanding. I don't get it. I still don't get it. Much of the criticism from this bill is married women and trans people who have changed their legal names, among others, bear an unnecessary burden into providing their identities. This is not what we want. Democracy is our freedom. We have made accommodations for those who don't speak for themselves. This is what the SAVE Act is going to do to the American women and to the American voters. It's the same thing. The bill requires a photo ID with visible expiration dates to vote in the federal elections, including your driver's license, your military ID, and your college ID. Currently, many states do not require photo IDs. I remember during the McAuliffe governorship, I was asked to serve on a lawsuit with Hillary Clinton. I had to go to Washington and do a live videotaping. And the reason it was done is because we were fighting the same thing. Looks like every election, Republicans are not satisfied with the outcome. And the funny thing about it, they're using the same system that got them elected, that got us elected. Let's be clear here. So all this thing about an ID, we just had an election in 2024. It was the same election we had in 2020. The same election we had over the years. So this thing about voting rights, don't get afraid of going out and exercising your rights. This is what we are fighting for today. Now, as far as mail-in ballots, now get back to the lawsuit, which we won. And the reason we won is because I had the guts to stand up and ask them point blank. And it was the Republicans that was in charge of the elections at the time. Now, here's what I asked them. I have friends who have had cancer. And when they come to the polls with their photo IDs, their driver's license, they don't look like themselves, right? Right? They either lost the hair, they either lost weight, and do not look like themselves. Now, do we turn them away from voting?
No.
Thank you. That's why we won the case. Here today, I will stress, please talk to your family members. Let them get upset, but explain to them day in and day out. We say every election is important. But every election, it gets more dire straits. We have 9 people on the Supreme Court of the United States, which has allowed a felon to get all the rights he wants. And look where we are today. We are still in a war which no one understands. But be aware, if we go to the polls in November, please make sure all your family members are voting. This is not the time to sit at home and say, oh, everybody is the same, because they're not. They're not the same. Every election, we have a dire straight need for people to get out and vote. And I'm going to make it clear, because as a black woman, I understand a lot of black people are not voting because they use the same line, the lesser of two evils. Now, I'm going to be clear. There's only one evil that we're seeing there. Okay? So when it comes to, oh, we're not, we don't do this and we don't do that because we're supposed to be negative about voting. Well, let me be clear. If you voted for a Republican, please don't stand in my way, because I'm going to get in your way. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and next we have Sheba here.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sheba Williams. I am the founder and executive director of a Richmond, Virginia-based organization called No Left Turns. I also lead the Virginia Right to Vote Coalition. We are going to remove felony disenfranchisement from our Constitution November 3rd of this year. The fight has been a long fight. The last time we had this constitutional amendment on the ballot was 1984, and it failed because people said, what about those people? Those people are my people. I was wrongfully incarcerated in 2004 and convicted of a felony that for the first time in history on July 1, I was able to walk into the same court that I was convicted in and file a petition to seal my record this year because of advocacy that we have done since 1999. Thank you. The road is not easy. The path is not short. It takes some time to make these things happen. So historically, after 196 years, we have the opportunity to remove a thing from our Constitution that has been there since newly freed slaves were trying to exercise their civic power. Be clear, it has never been about public safety or moral turpitude or if a person is able to make a decision based on their knowledge or education. It has always been about keeping as many black people as possible from exercising their rights. What you need to know about your right to vote is it is tied to everything that you care about. If you want construction done on your street, if you want street lights, if you want free meals for your kids in schools, if you want your taxes to be equitable, all of those things are tied to the vote. We are a Dillon Rule state. That means that everything goes through our legislature, but at the end of the day, we are allowing people to make decisions for us without having representation. If you are an individual who has a felony conviction in this state, you are losing your civil rights, the right to vote, the right to serve on a jury, the right to be a notary public, and the right to run for public office. This year, right now, we have the first ever black individual as Speaker of the House, and he is the only formerly incarcerated individual in our legislation. We did have two, and the other one who was formerly incarcerated was against allowing people to have their rights back automatically because he said his process was difficult, needed to be difficult for everybody. He was convicted twice and given opportunities twice. And he sat on the diocese and said, my process was difficult, it should be difficult for everybody, and that is simply not true. Virginia leads the nation in taking away people's rights. 1 in 3 adults has some sort of record. 1 in 7 Virginians has a felony conviction. That means that the 95% of individuals who return to our communities are working, have families, are able to participate in community events. They can knock on doors. They can knock on doors and they can get people registered, but they are not allowed to use their voice. They are not voiceless, they are muted intentionally. For 9 years I was disenfranchised, even though it was only supposed to be 5, because of inability to afford my restitution. We got rid of poll taxes and literacy tests. We kind of sort of got rid of lynching, even though we still see it prevalently in the South at least. But we kept felony disenfranchisement. And I say 196 years ago is when our Constitution changed, but the most stunning moment was in 1902 when Carter Glass said that it is my goal to keep as many darkies as possible out of this Constitution. We have seen attacks on our voting rights all across the country. We see the Supreme Court that has been stacked by the current administration taking away rights and pushing back redistricting. We showed up in April and we voted for redistricting and we won on redistricting, but our Supreme Court said no, your voices do not matter. We have to stay steadfast. Now, Virginia has had the fortitude of having our own Voting Rights Act. I think we're 13th in the nation. We have instituted 45 days of early voting. We have no excuse absentee ballots. We have Sunday voting and Saturday voting. We are in an election right now, and the deadline to vote for that is August the 4th. Midterms are just as important as any general election. What we are seeing is people saying, I'm not going to show up because this does nothing for me. And what you're essentially doing is giving your vote away. You're giving your power away. You are saying that I am going to allow people to make decisions for me. And guess what? People who are fighting to make sure that you do not have income, equitable access, Medicare, things like that, they are voting. They are voting and they are serving. They are showing up. They are not ducking jury duty. And they are making decisions based on what their best interests are, not ours. So as community, I know that all of us here are registered and voting and doing the things. We have to educate others on the significance and importance of what this vote means. We have to make sure that our neighbors are registered. We have to care about people more than we care about our own household, because our neighbor's safety is just as significant as our safety. The Calais decision happened, and I was in New Orleans when it happened, and we were devastated for the moment. But we get up and fight again, every day. It is our duty to show up for people who cannot show up for themselves right now. So this year, I'll say in November, we showed up to a special hearing of privileges and elections, and we had the 3 constitutional amendments heard on our ballot. We have 3 constitutional amendments, and that is a rarity. The right to marry. Marriage equality is about a decision that is already in our federal constitution. This constitutional amendment is just putting Virginia in line with what the federal government says and allowing people to marry who they love. The reproductive freedom constitutional amendment is not just about abortion access, but Virginia is the only state down south that still allows safe abortion access. It is about health care. We are talking about cancer screening. We're talking about cancer survival, thyroid, access to contraception. Virginia just passed a bill that allows contraception to be free in the state of Virginia. That is a huge deal. We are talking about more than just abortion rights. We are talking about allowing women to make decisions for themselves about their bodies like everybody else makes decisions about themselves. And finally, the right to vote constitutional amendment is the constitutional amendment that I lead on. In 2013, I got my rights reinstated under Governor Bob McDonnell. My mother also got her rights reinstated after being convicted in 1989 of a violent offense. My father did 19 and a half years in Greensville Correctional Center, and when he came home in 2007, he was denied over and over and over again the right to vote. Well, in 2023, we sued the Youngkin administration for changing the restoration of rights process. My dad was the center of the lawsuit, and in an effort to moot that lawsuit, he reinstated my dad's rights, and my dad has voted every election since November 2023. Now, unfortunately, I lost my mother on election day in 2021, and I think she made the decision that this administration was coming in and she didn't agree with it and she needed to be out. That was the perfect time for her to make her exit. So for me, I take pride in the fact that my mother worked as an election poll worker every election since she got her rights reinstated in 2013, just like I do. So I still show up. I still show up because she would kill me if I didn't. I have friends who came together for a rally when the Youngkin administration purged 3,400 people illegally due to technical violations, which are not new crimes. They are things like missing an appointment, not being able to afford BASAP classes, not being able to go to anger management classes, missing curfew, things like that. We put a rally together in 48 hours, and the majority of the people who came from all across the state and from D.C. could not vote. Because Virginia has same-day voter registration that we put into our Voting Rights Act, one of my friends was notified the day before the election that he could go down and file his ballot, submit a provisional ballot, but he was able to vote and has voted ever since. I lost my love in February due to suicide, and he got his rights back under an automatic executive order when Northam came in 2021. We notified the Privileges and Elections team that my ex-husband, happily ex-husband, I need a clap for that. My ex-husband was sentenced at the age of 15 and tried as an adult and sentenced to 74 years. He was released after 18 and a half years. So at the age of 36, he had done more time in prison than I would. And he was on indefinite parole. That meant that his parole officer had the ability to determine when he could be released from parole, if he would be released from parole, and in turn it impacted whether or not he got his civil rights back. We did the hearing. They text Northam. He said, sure, we can reinstate everybody, but Virginia has a rule. You cannot do blanket restoration of rights. You have to do each individual application. So about 2 weeks passed, and they held a ceremony. 69,045 Virginians got their rights back in that moment because of our advocacy. Now, I lost my friend Sincere Allah, who did a name change in prison, and because of his name change, he did not get caught up in that sweep, even though he should have been eligible. He had to wait until July 2023, and we were in LA when a lot of friends started calling saying, hey, I got my rights back, check yours. And we saw a ton of people get their rights back in that moment. Sincere voted in every election, and he advocated, and he testified, and he stood shoulder to shoulder with me in the General Assembly to make this happen in November. And again in January, on day one of General Assembly, we had a hearing where the House passed their version in one day. They sent it to each committee in one day, which is unheard of, but it happened. And the Senate ultimately did theirs on that Friday because they went through the processes. And now we have the opportunity on November 3rd to make this happen, to remove this stain from our Constitution that is a vestige of Jim Crow. We will win together. And if you do not understand the significance of what this means, it means that the 12,000 individuals who leave Virginia Department of Corrections every year and the hundreds of thousands of people who come from federal prisons every year will have the opportunity to have their rights reinstated without having to go through a process that one person makes a decision on. We have been fighting for this constitutional amendment even when the governors have leaned on the right side of justice. When Northam was in, when McCullough was in, when McDonnell was in, we were trying to get this done. Youngkin highlighted the fact that an individual can change the process from administration to administration, and sometimes from year to year. We have a current administration that everybody thinks should be doing good things. They have not. Unfortunately, we still have seen the smallest amount of people reinstated in the 6 months since they've been in. And I served on the transition team in December and was told that everybody who was in the backlog would be reinstated, but they have not been yet due to technical issues or IT issues. But we are in the middle of an election, and we are essentially saying that those people don't matter enough to make this a priority. Right. We will register, we will reinstate, we will push, we will fight, we will do the press conferences, because I kind of got in trouble for doing a presser on the King case. But it's not about the friendships and relationships that are built. Right. I love the people that work in the administration. We are friends. We share grief together. We are going through losses, but that does not negate from the fact that there's a responsibility and a duty to make sure that every Virginian has access to the ballot box. All the personal things set aside, I am here for the people that matter. And I will continue the fight, and I know that you all are allies in this fight. We get it. We all understand. We have a responsibility and a duty to make sure that the people who are on the fence about this, are uneducated or undereducated about this, have the information. They're not here right now. So we got to do door to door. When we are doing get out the vote efforts, we have to introduce restoration of rights into the process. When people say, oh, I don't vote, I can't vote, we got to figure out why. We got to get to the reason why and what people care about. And when you talk to individuals who say, I don't believe that people who have committed crimes should get their voting rights back. You got to ask them, who are your people? Because 1 in 3 people have some sort of record, and I am 100% sure that they are connected to somebody that they do not know is impacted by this. There's a stigma around this, but I live with that wrongful conviction proudly because it made me a monster in this advocacy race. I show up unapologetically and I talk about my experiences and the 60,000 plus collateral consequences that came with that conviction. I will have you know that I was working a job at Centera Norfolk General and was fired from that job. Even though I was hired before the conviction and did not lie on my application, they dismissed me because Medicaid rules say you cannot have a felony and work in these institutions. They had never had a breach. They had never had an issue. They called me at 3 in the morning. I was a super user, which means I trained my supervisor, all the doctors, all the nurses, all the administrative staff on the floor for a decade. And all they could say was, the rules say. Well, I think like Pinky in the Brain, I'm going to break all the rules. I started working for myself. I now graduated from Norfolk State University. Behold, I have 3 children who, my oldest one has her master's in social work. My son just completed his architecture dual degree at Hampton University. He will get his diploma in August, but he will walk in May 2027. My baby girl is 23 years old. She is working on her master's in criminal justice, and she will go to law school at Howard University upon completion of her master's. Because I want to retire. I am building the legacy that I want to see, and I am doing the things in the community. We train, we do an advocacy training program. We run a program called CASE where we teach formerly incarcerated individuals how to take care of themselves and their mental wellness versus trying to save the world before they come out. But the most important thing in the honor of my life is making sure that I can pick up that phone and call an individual and say, you got your rights reinstated, go get registered to vote. When we win in November, I will no longer have to do that job, and I will be successful and honored to work myself out of that role. People will just have to go get registered to vote, but we still have work to do. So I appreciate y'all. I applaud y'all. There are so many things that are tied into this, and I know that I do a whole lot of things. It's not just enough to vote. You still have to show up and advocate. You still have to show up and voice your opinion and share your stories and talk about your why. Because everybody has a different why, but all of us have the same goal. It is imperative that we keep the fight going and let people know, don't just show up and give your vote away. Show up and talk to your representatives, run for office, serve on boards and commissions, be on school board meetings, be at city council meetings, go to these commission meetings, because the decisions are being made about what happens to us before that legislation starts in January. So those are y'all marching orders. I always come with a call to action. November 3rd, we have to make this happen. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your people in the grocery store, talk in the lines, and I know this is not the perfect time to have the political conversation, but you never know what people care about. If you start with what they care about, you can get to why this vote is important to them. And that is the thing everybody needs to understand. If an individual cares about not having access to jobs, not having affordable housing, you can let them know how it is tied into that vote. We can ignite people's fear by, we can get rid of people's fear by talking about the things that they care about and how it is imperative to participate in these processes instead of sitting home and letting other people make decisions for them. So that is your call to action. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Sheba, and thank you, Barbara Lee, for your words. And next we have Uhuru.
Thank you. Assata Shakur said that black people will never be free until black women participate in every aspect of the struggle. And thank you, Barbara Lee. Thank you, Sheba Williams. I appreciate you all. Prime example of what Assata Shakur was talking about. So I wrote my speech. my brain is not mentally sharp as Barbara Lee and Sheila Williams. So I appreciate y'all allowing me to read my speech, if that's okay with you all.
Yeah, of course.
So peace to Waynesboro. This is the place where I was formerly living before I moved away from the city. I now live in Stanton. So first I want to thank Virginia Organizing, which is an organization that I was volunteering with when I was in Waynesboro and continue to organize with. The League of Women Voters of Stanton, as well as the Waynesboro chapter of the NAACP. I appreciate all of you all for showing up today and sponsoring this event. We are gathered in this place called Constitution Park, which is a place that I used to come to when I was in prison. I used to run around this very place right here as a way to sort of, you can't hear me? Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah. All right, sorry about that. So we are gathered in this place called Constitution Park to deliver a message, and that message is hands off our vote, hands off our right to shape our future and our destiny. We are also here to commemorate John Lewis, but we do not honor John Lewis by turning him into a safe photograph from our past. We honor him by confronting the danger in front of us right now. John Lewis crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but he did not cross it alone. He crossed with a movement with hundreds of people whose courage was supported by years of local organizing, voter registration work, and collective struggle. The violence directed at those marches on Bloody Sunday helped move the nation towards the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Can you all continue to hear me? That is the lesson I want to live up today. History is not changed by waiting for one heroic person to rescue us. History is changed when ordinary people like you all become organized people. I know something about that difference. At 18 years old, I participated in a robbery in the city of Richmond that resulted in 2 people losing their lives. I do not run from the harm connected to my choices. At 18, I carry that responsibility with me day in and day out. But accountability is not the same as permanent human erasure. I was sentenced to 93 years in prison, a sentence designed to outlive me. I entered prison at 18 and remained there until I was 49 years old. For nearly 31 years in prison, the state controlled nearly every aspect of my life. It also stripped away my political voice. Election after election took place while I was confined. Governors, legislators, prosecutors, judges, sheriffs, all exercised power over people like me. Lawmakers decided sentencing policies, prison budgets, parole rules, and prison conditions while I was confined. Yet the people most directly affected by those decisions had no voice in making them. That is why felony disenfranchisement is so powerful. It does more than prevent a person from casting a ballot. It delivers a message. And that message is, you are governed, but you do not belong. You may be counted as part of the prison population, but your political judgment does not count. The system tried to reduce me to a number, and that number was 1131545. But prison did not extinguish my consciousness. Instead, I read, I studied law, I became a certified paralegal when I was in prison. I graduated from Stratford Career Institute. I now work at a law firm in Charlottesville. I use my voice to expose extreme heat conditions in prison. Medical neglect, dehumanization, just basically the realities of prison that a lot of people in the public don't know about. I spoke through prison radio, which is sort of like a podcast, online platform where people in prison sort of share about their experiences in prison, prisonradio.org, if you want to check it out. I work with people on both sides of the wall. I try to help others understand that although the state confined our bodies, it did not confine our minds. Organizing inside of prison was difficult because isolation is one of the systems, the carceral machine's greatest tools. People are transferred, mail is delayed, sales are restricted, calls are restricted, organizers face retaliation. I was transferred several times when I was in prison as a result of organizing behind the walls. The institution wants everyone to believe they are alone. Somebody's calling me from prison right now. So our first act of resistance was to find one another. We shared information, we wrote letters, we developed political education behind the walls. We connected with people inside, with organizers outside. And one of the first platforms I did that with was the Industrial Workers of the World Union, which is one of the first unions that accepted incarcerated people into their ranks. We learned that a cell can imprison a body, but it cannot imprison an idea once that idea finds a community. That lesson eventually became the lesson of my freedom. I had submitted several clemency petitions when I was in prison, 10 in total. For years, nothing moved. Then people began to organize in a sustained, coordinated way. Students and community members formed what was called the Justice for Uhuru Coordinated Committee, as we call it at JUCC. People who had never met me in person decided that the state would not be allowed to make me invisible. They held rallies and teach-ins, they organized emails and telephone campaigns, they wrote letters, they gathered more than 2,600 signatures for my change.org petition. They contacted decision makers, lawmakers, they advocated for me. Then I eventually found an attorney who was willing to take on my case pro bono. As you know, when you're in prison, lawyers tend to charge you tens of thousands of dollars in order to advocate or to try to help you to get parole or clemency. Not a single action won my freedom. One telephone call did not do it. One letter did not do it. One rally did not do it. One legislator did not do it. But all these actions joined together and sustained over time created pressure that could not easily be ignored. In 2022, Governor Ralph Northam commuted my sentence. This is the only reason why I'm here before you today. And because they wanted me to do 30 years in total. So it wasn't until October the 18th, 2025, after nearly 31 consecutive years in prison, that I walked out of prison. And then I moved from Richmond here to Waynesboro because I did not want to go back to the same city in which I was being a crazy adolescent. The governor signed the paper, but that paper did not fall from the sky. My release was made possible by people who organized, educated, lobbied, protested, wrote letters, made phone calls, signed petitions, and donated and refused to give up. My freedom is personal, but it is not merely an individual story. It is a small example, a microcosm, if you will, of how communities can confront power and force institutions to move. My story is not proof that the system worked. It is proof that organized people can make a system do what it would not otherwise do. And that distinction matters. We cannot build justice around exceptional acts of mercy. Every incarcerated person should not need a statewide campaign. Thousands of signatures and the attention of elected officials simply to be recognized as a human capable of growth and redemption. In the same way, the right to vote should not depend on whether a person can persuade a governor to return those rights. A vote is not a certificate of moral perfection. It is not a prize for people whose lives have been free of mistakes. It is not a favor granted by a politician. It is an instrument of citizenship and collective self-determination. When people return home, they return to our families and communities. They work, they pay taxes, they care for their children and elders, they worship, study, organize, and contribute. They are affected by decisions about housing, employment, healthcare, education, policing, and public safety. When I came home, well, first of all, if it wasn't for my friend slash lawyer slash supervisor, because she plays multiple roles in my life, I would not have had housing when I came home. I would have been homeless. But she made a phone call to a landlord, and that landlord agreed to give me housing here in Waynesboro. Turned down when it came to applying for employment. Again, if it wasn't for the same friend, I would not have had a job. She agreed to give me a job at her law firm. Their voices are not less relevant because they have experienced the criminal legal system. Their voices are especially necessary because they know how government power operates when that power is most concentrated and least visible. That is why felony disenfranchisement is not a side issue in the struggle against voter suppression. It is part of the architecture of voter suppression. Voter suppression does not always arrive wearing a uniform and swinging a club. Sometimes it arrives as a complicated form. Sometimes it operates through the criminal legal system, removing political power from communities already subjugated to intense government control. Here in Virginia, the rules affecting people with felony convictions are complicated and have recently changed. A federal court ruling in January 2026 made some people eligible to register without first obtaining gubernatorial restoration. That is why the assistance offered here today matters. Do not assume that you are ineligible. Do not let confusion silence you. Check your status. Bring that information back to your family, your neighborhood, and your community. This November, Virginia voters will face a historic question. And that question is, proposed Constitutional Amendment Question 3 would establish the fundamental right to vote in Virginia and automatically return political rights to a person upon release from incarceration. That choice asks whether a person walks out of prison as a member of the political community or as a petitioner asking one powerful official for permission to belong to our community. It asks whether Virginia will continue to govern through exclusion or take a meaningful step towards a more complicated democracy. We must organize to pass that amendment November the 3rd. The ballot is an important tool, but it is not an entire toolbox. Voting gains its greatest power when it comes to connecting year-round organizing, knocking on doors, educating our neighbors, attending public meetings, lobbying legislators, supporting directly impacted people like myself. Even before our release, I helped found and build an organization that was called the Incarcerated Women's Clemency and Support Project. And the project is committed to working for the freedom of incarcerated women, especially criminalized survivors of intimate partner violence, the way others have worked for me. Only months after my release, I entered the Virginia General Assembly building as a member of the IWCSP, which was organized by family members. I walked those halls not as a prison member, but as an advocate. We met with lawmakers, we pressed for clemency, and we demanded that incarcerated women be seen and heard and brought home. That day emboldened the lesson of my release. People who have been punished, who have been pushed to the margins, do not have to remain politically powerless. When we combine lived experience with organization, strategy, and collective action, we can enter the places where decisions are made and force our issues onto the agenda, which is what November 3rd is all about. Being allowed into a government building is not power. Taking a photograph with an elected official is not power. Receiving a promise is not power. Power is the organized capacity to make decision makers respond and to hold them accountable when they do not. John Lewis understood that. The Selman marchers were not asking the nation to admire their suffering. They used disciplined collective action to make continued injustice impossible to ignore. So I know time is of the essence, so I will go down to the bottom of my speech. And when someone says that ordinary people cannot change anything, remember that students, organizers, family members, and advocates sentenced to die in prison walk free after nearly 31 years, like myself. No one person did that. Organized people did that. That is how movement grows. One person speaks, another listens. 10 people meet, they form an organization. Organizations form a coalition. A coalition creates pressure. Pressure moves policy. Policy changes lives. That is the bridge before us now. I also know what becomes possible when people refuse to remain isolated and powerless. I was not freed by silence. I was not freed by waiting. I was not freed by one heroic individual. I came home because people organized. That is the only reason why I'm here before you today. And when it comes to November 3rd, I hope that we all come together in an organized fashion and help get this ballot amendment passed that will restore the rights of people like myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Next we have Michaela.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to start by saying that an attack on voting rights anywhere is a threat to democracy everywhere. The right to vote is the foundation for every other right we have. If politicians get to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their politicians, then our democracy stops working the way it was intended. This year, we watched the Supreme Court weaken another key protection of the Voting Rights Act, a law that was passed because Black Americans, along with countless allies, marched, bled, and even died for the simple right to cast a ballot that counted equally. The recent ruling makes it more difficult to challenge electoral maps that dilute the voting strength of racial minorities under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Civil rights groups have warned that it could make it easier for legislators to redraw districts in ways that reduce minority representation. That matters because maps aren't just lines on paper. Maps decides who gets represented, maps decides whose voices are heard, and maps decide who has political power. When we look at North Carolina, after redistricting, lawmakers approved new congressional maps designed to create an additional Republican-leaning congressional seat. Critics argued that the changes would reduce the voting influence of many Black communities. Those additional seats don't just affect North Carolina, they affect the balance of power in Congress, influencing which legislation has the votes to pass and which legislation fails. So when we talk about the big, beautiful bill, when I talk with people, they say, oh, well, what happens in North Carolina or what happens in any other state doesn't affect us. In the long run, it does. So that's why I tell people, what happens in another state doesn't stay in another state. When one state redraws districts, it can change who controls the House of Representatives. When control of Congress changes, it affects every Virginian. It affects our health care, our reproductive freedoms, it affects our education, it affects our environmental protections, and it affects our economy. So it affects all of us, our families, our neighbors, and our friends. And Virginia knows something about gerrymandering too. For years, our Commonwealth faced lawsuits over legislative maps that courts found diluted the voting strength of Black Virginians. In one notable case, courts concluded that Black voters have been packed into a single district beyond what was necessary under the Voting Rights Act, reducing their influence in surrounding districts. Those cases became a reminder that fair representation isn't automatic. It requires vigilance and accountability. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about whether every voter has an equal voice. Because democracy only works when every community has a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. Our vote is not just a piece of paper. It is our voice, it is our power, it is our future. A lot of people will say, my vote doesn't matter, but if voting didn't matter, politicians wouldn't spend so much time trying to redraw districts, change election laws, or fight over who gets to vote. They know that your vote is your power, and they know that your vote is your voice. And that's why we're all here today. We're here to remind people that democracy isn't self-executing. It depends on ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That's why we need people to go out and register people to vote. We need people to vote, and we need people to show up. We need people to speak out, and we need to start holding our leaders accountable. The Voting Rights Act wasn't handed to us. It was earned through sacrifice, and every generation has a choice. We can either protect that legacy or watch it disappear piece by piece. I know what choice I'm making. I choose democracy, I choose fair maps, and I choose equal representation for everybody. And I choose to keep fighting until every eligible voter has an equal voice and every vote carries equal weight. So today, I want everyone here to leave determined. I want you guys to talk to your neighbors. I want you to start volunteering. We have all these great groups here. And make a plan to vote and help someone get registered, because our democracy doesn't belong to the politicians, it belongs to us. So thank you all for coming. Thank you guys for sharing your stories, and let's keep fighting.
Thank you, Michaela. Next we have a call to action, so I'll invite Luna and Andrea up here.
So our call to action is for us to get educated, go vote, but also go to your local events. So I have here a piece of paper that has just basic information about our politics. So about, what town halls are, what the differences are between cities and counties, key responsibilities for town, city, and counties, what makes up a city council, information about, as well as like school board responsibilities, information about the House versus the Senate, and then just information I believe that is really important for us to have. We can see an example right now with what happened with Waynesboro Thursday. People came together and spoke their piece. We can also see, especially with the flock cameras, how people were feeling at first that it wasn't going to be anything done, we couldn't push it, but communities have pushed it. Stanton has done it, Charlottesville has done it, and with the work of Harrisonburg, other smaller areas like Augusta County and Elkton have pushed to be able to speak on this. So it shows that if we come together as a community, voice our pieces, and actually educate ourselves, they can't fight us back on it. Please make sure to go to your Board of Supervisor meetings, your City Council meetings. Go to them. If you're not able to go to them, all of them will have them live and you can go watch them afterwards. So please keep yourself educated on what's going on. Please make yourself known to others and have your voice be loud. Don't be people who are expecting that things aren't going to change, because it's not going to change unless we actually push ourselves to it.
Just my 2 cents is that I came back home in 2010 from graduating from college, and I specifically came to get back involved in local government. I would go to my city council meetings, and I would participate in our local government. Most people vote in the presidential elections, but our state and local elections are actually the most important because they affect us the most, and they're the ones that we're not as versed in. And so, like what we did, we came together, and we want y'all to take on some of the flyers and give it to people that you know, because a lot of people don't know about their state and local government and how it works. And sometimes you don't want to make people feel stupid. They'll be like, well, why don't you know this? So that's why we made the pamphlet. So it's just saying that, hey, this is this information. And so we want y'all to go to y'all's local meetings, be involved, and then encourage other people to vote, and also to get to know like the elections that's coming on in this election year. Here we have a Republican primary August the 4th, but we have a general election November the 3rd, and here in Waynesboro we have school board and city council and our congressional, but then also in Stanton they have school board and city council and the congressional. I think it's just congressional and in Augusta County. But see,
U.S. Senate.
oh yeah, the Senate.
That Mark Warner guy.
Yeah, yes, the congressional. And see, that's the thing. Like we be getting so confused, and they just having a thing where they're like, they're having a study to see. Like Virginia is one of the only states that has an election every year, so it's not an excuse that we shouldn't be voting, but they are looking to see to put them all on the even years, because we do have them on the odd years. But nevertheless, get involved. Just like Luna says, is that once you get involved, you know what's going on. Because look, these politicians is going to try to sneak some stuff through. And so we need to be here to stop it and then educate the masses.
And one final thing, to make it easier for people, I did make a website last night. It's handsoffourvote.car.co that has all the information for Stanton, Augusta County, Waynesboro, and other resources. When you click on it for City of Stanton, it has the Stanton website, meeting agenda link, the voter registration link, the link for bids and contracts that happen in Stanton, the city calendar, public meetings, their Facebook page, their YouTube channel, and also their library newsletter. Then when you go to Waynesboro and Augusta, it has similar information there. And then under resources has the Virginia Department of Elections, Virginia Public Access Project. I also found a handbook for Virginia mayors and council members so we can learn more about what they're supposed to be doing for responsibilities, information on the House Representatives, the Senate, and currently we're working on a civil rights timeline to kind of bring everything back together for everybody who, again, education is a very important aspect to this, and having a platform set up to where it's easier for people to find the information makes it easier to have people learn.
It's on the paper, the flyer piece.
I just want to say, and we gotta encourage the young people like Luna. And I'm gonna say this one thing is that, bro, she out here doing the work, bro. Y'all need to subscribe to no, for a second. Y'all need to subscribe to her Substack or her YouTube channel because look, I thought that the speakers was very well, and I was like, yeah, I'm so glad Luna is here recording it so that we can share it to the people that could not be here. And so a lot of the times in this last election season, she has informed a lot of people because she has taken the time to be invested and to learn herself, ask the questions, and then come to the events that she is asking other people to come to. And so, it just was our spark of her interest, and, not talking down to the young people, but encouraging them. And then, she did her own thing. And, I'm very proud of it. And so, y'all subscribe, not free, with y'all money. But anyway, but also, we got to be about action. The other thing that our call to action is that we gave all the general definitions, but we're going to have a part 2.
Y'all got to do your homework. Yeah.
So we're going to have another community event, hopefully September the 12th. And we want it to be bigger and better, but we want to also, at that event, inform and have more information about the individual candidates, but we want y'all to start doing your homework and look into, who we should be doing the work to investigate about who is in y'all's best interest and vote for those people.
All right, thank you both so much. At this time, we'll just invite you to check out our tables and see the ways that you can get involved.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. We might have an open mic. Hold on. And then, wait a minute. If y'all want to get jiggy with if y'all want to march and do something, get this popping. We can do that.
I beseech you to come out and canvass with us. We also come out and canvass, we table. Right now, our organization is doing a statewide campaign to restore as many rights to previously convicted felons as we can, ideally before November 3rd. And so please, I ask you, felony disenfranchisement for me is a nonpartisan issue. It is an issue that should matter regardless of what line you're on. I urge you to get involved and to help out in every capacity that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we go on and have a march here, I just have a poem to read, and really quick, I wanted to also just send a thank you to our organization group, which was Luna Scott, Andrea Jackson, Michaela Venable, Lee Ashley Harden, Barbara Lee, Luna Mutual Aid, and Linda Shalash. So, this is just a reading from Audre Lorde. Oh, can you all hear me? Okay, this is a reading from Audre Lorde. I have found that battling despair does not mean closing my eyes to the enormity of the tasks of effecting change, nor ignoring the strength and the barbarity of the forces aligned against us. It means teaching, surviving, and fighting with the most important resource I have, myself, and taking joy in the battle. It means for me recognizing the enemy outside and the enemy within, and knowing that my work is part of a continuum of work, of reclaiming this earth and our power, and knowing that this work did not begin with my birth, nor will it end with my death. And it means knowing that within this continuum, my life and my love and my work has particular power and meaning relative to others. The enormity of our task to turn the world around, it feels like turning my life around inside out. If I can look directly at my life and my death without flinching, I know there is nothing they can ever do to me again. All right, go forth and spread the word. Thank you.
I also, listen, when we talk about needing more young people, I want to say my best buddies are here. Randall, how old are you again?
I am 67.
No, he told me. I thought Randall was in his 50s. He told me he's 67. And then we're 70s. Like these people are our best canvassers and all this stuff. So I just wanted to shout them out with their.
You just wanted to shout out the old people.
But they're doing a lot of the work, and it is a lot of them.
But it's so exciting to see people like you and the young people coming out and really getting involved. I gotta just tell you, that's what Robert and Barbara Lee and Ann and all of us live for, is to see the energy that's coming forth from people like you.
Yeah, I was shocked. We were at the fair, and I was like, Randall, I was like, he's in his 50s. He was like, no, I'm not. I said, oh,
Some people said we got water and snacks.
yes, ma'am.